What's going on, guys? Today we're back with another video, and today I'll be going over tips for PC building. Now these are tips for beginners, and I really hope that this video helps you out in your PC building journey. Okay, first tip number 1, motherboard. There are different types of motherboard form factors, but the most common ones are ATX and micro ATX. Now ATX is slightly larger than micro ATX. If you're planning to connect a lot of components, then ATX form factor might be right for you. And if you're going for less connections and more of a smaller design and look, then micro ATX would be better for you. Either way, whatever motherboard you have should at least have these things. First, at least 4 memory slots. So just having 4 memory slots leaves room for upgradability. Let's say you start it with 2, then you could add 4 on later on in your PC's life. At least one M.2 SSD slot. M.2 SSDs are the fastest type of storage ever. So having at least one slot will make it very useful if you do buy an M.2 SSD. And built-in Bluetooth and built-in Wi-Fi. I wouldn't say I'm very tech savvy, but I am a bit tech savvy, and I have a couple of Bluetooth components. So connecting them via Bluetooth is pretty important. Let's say I have a speaker, I want to connect it by Bluetooth, so it just makes it a whole lot easier. And Wi-Fi. Now Ethernet is better, but sometimes you just don't have the option. Let's say your room is like really far away from your Wi-Fi router, then you can't just have a really long Ethernet cord. I mean, you can, but it's not optimal. Now, selecting a motherboard is very personal and very unique to your wants. Your motherboard must match the CPU you choose, the RAM you choose, and in some cases, the graphics card you choose. So you must be very nitpicky and make sure you want what you want. Tip number 5, CPU. There are 2 CPU brands, Intel and AMD. Now there isn't much difference between the two in terms of performance. Now choosing a CPU really boils down to one thing. How much performance do you need? If you want to play intensive games like Call of Duty, Cyberpunk, Far Cry 6, and you want to have very high FPS like 300 FPS, then you should go for a top tier CPU like a Core i9 or a Core i9 12th gen or a Ryzen 9 5900X. These are pretty high, but you could even go higher than that if you need it. Now for a more mid-level range, I would say a Core i5 or a Core i7 11th gen, really depends on your budget, or a Ryzen 5 5600X or a Ryzen 7. Really, you could choose between any. It really depends on your budget. Now for low level, I would recommend a Core i3 10th gen or a Ryzen 3 3200 or a CPU near those those two I just mentioned. Now CPU really, like, every single thing runs on your CPU. So try to go for the best CPU that you can purchase, as it will be useful in the long run. Okay, tip number 3, case. Now the case you purchase will dictate how big your components will be. If you choose a very small case, then you gotta go with smaller components. So some basic things that a case should have or multiple fan mounts to ensure adequate airflow for your components. If your components get too hot, then the heat can damage the components, which will cost you money to repair them or to buy new ones. Also, you want to have great airflow if you really want to squeeze out performance of your components. Keeping it cool means it runs better and faster. So having a mesh front for a PC case is very helpful. Also, when buying a PC case, keep in mind what type of components you'll be using. If you have a very large graphics card, then buy a larger case. If you got a small graphics card or no graphics card, then a smaller case might be for you. Same thing applies to motherboard. If you have a really big motherboard, then you want to get a bigger case, obviously. Also, this is a bit of a side note and more for aesthetics, but I would say get a case that has a glass panel so you can see all the awesome build in all of its glory. And also try to get a PC case that has a lot of room for cable management. Cable management is very important if you want your PC to look very sleek and very just look nice in general. Tip number 4: power supply. Now, first of all, any power supply that you buy should be 80 plus bronze to ensure that it has a lengthy life and it does not explode or fry your components. Under no circumstance should you cheap out on your PSU. Now remember, your PSU is connected to everything that runs in your PC. So if that goes, a lot of things will go with it. So do not cheap out on your PSU. Try to get the best PSU that you can buy, as this will help future-proof your build and it will keep things nice and safe. On a side note, and this is more for aesthetics, but buy a modular PSU or a semi-modular PSU. This will help out so much in cable management, and overall it'll just make your build look sleek and just make less of a mess. Okay, the next tip is storage. How big of storage do you need? Well, I'm just guessing, I really don't know your needs, but if you're building a PC for gaming, then I would say around 500 to 800 gigabytes should be good for you. And that's if you play like a couple of games, not much, like 3 or 4 games, that should be good for you. And if you are building a PC for content creation, where you deal with long videos with effects, then anything over 1 terabyte should be good for you. Now, what type of storage should you get? Well, there are 3 main types of storage, going from cheapest to most expensive. Hard disk drive, SATA solid state drive, M.2 solid state drive. Now, for the hard disk drive, it is perfect for bulk storage, but you do have to keep in mind it is pretty slow. Now the SATA SSD is really quick, so it's great for putting in any apps that you want to use, and it could be good for storage as well. Now finally, you should put your operating system and frequently used apps on your M.2 SSD. For gamers, I would recommend a 500 gigabyte SSD, that's a SATA SSD, and a M.2 SSD more than 200 gigabytes. With this duo, your speeds will be very fast and your load times will be even faster. I say put your OS and your frequently used apps on the M.2 SSD and the games on your regular SATA SSD. Now for content creation, I say buy all 3. A 1 terabyte hard disk drive, a 500 gigabyte SSD, and a M.2 SSD less than 500 gigabytes. Now the hard disk drive can be very cheap for storing those large video files, the SSD for your apps, and the M.2 SSD for your operating system. If you know what you want, then go for it. What I'm saying is simply a suggestion that I think will help out the majority of people. Another note for storage is buy a trusted brand. Buying cheap storage may result in data loss, as the quality of the component just isn't there. Alright, the next tip is memory. For memory, always go for dual channel, as this will give you more comparison, it will give you more of a performance in comparison with single channel. So if you can go with dual channel, go for dual channel. Now, dual channel means that you are using 2 RAM sticks. Now, I would recommend a 16 gigabyte RAM kit running in dual channel mode with a low profile heat spreader. This is great for games and content creation. Now, if you cannot fit a 16 gigabyte kit in your budget, then go for a 8 gigabyte kit running in dual channel. Now this means you got 2 4 gigabyte RAM stick. I can't believe I just forgot that. Try to choose a RAM kit with a low profile heat spreader so you can have lots of space for your CPU cooler. Now, just yeah, try to go for a small RAM stick. It just makes everything easier. Okay, the next tip is about graphics cards. Now, graphic cards are optional, but if you do want it for video games or content creation, it is a must-have. There are two options for graphic card, NVIDIA and AMD. Now, if you have a AMD CPU and you match it with an AMD GPU, then it would give a minimal performance boost, but not that much in comparison to an AMD CPU and a NVIDIA GPU. For a high level range, I would recommend a 3070 Ti NVIDIA graphics card or anything higher, or a Radeon RX 6700 XT or anything higher from AMD. Now for a mid-level range, I would recommend a 20 series GPU. Now 20 series basically means anything in the 20 series, like the first number is 20, and or a 16 series GPU from NVIDIA. 20 series if you have more room in your budget, 16 series if you gotta go a bit cheaper. Now from AMD, I would recommend a RX 6600 or a RX 6400 or anything around that area. Now for a low level range, I would recommend a 10 series GPU. Going anything below 10 series just does not make sense, especially in this world where a lot of games require a lot of GPU power. And yeah, just like I would say anything above 2 gigabytes, anything below 2 gigabytes is just not worth it. So try to have 2 gigabytes of VRAM memory in your GPU. And for the AMD side, I would say anything lower than an RX 6400, as I previously mentioned. Tip number 8, cooling. I think it's tip number 8. For any range of PC, you must have cooling. This is a necessary, this is not optional, you must have cooling. There are 3 routes of cooling that I have, mapped out. Normal, mid, and high level cooling. For normal cooling, just use the stock cooler that comes with the CPU and GPU. This is the cheapest as it comes with the product. And for a mid-level cooling, I would recommend a Cooler Master Hyper 212 Evo CPU cooler from Cooler Master. Now, this is pretty like buying a special CPU cooler, like not using your stock, will help you get performance as it does keep your CPU cooler. And for your GPU, I would just leave the stock cooler on. Now, for very high level cooling, I would recommend a all-in-one cooler. Now, this type of cooler uses water as a cooling source rather than air in the other examples that I've just mentioned. Now, you can also create your own custom water cooling loop for your GPU and CPU, but I would only recommend that to a experienced builder. So, final thoughts. Now, this is a bit of a final thoughts. So, buy from trusted brands. Like, yeah, sure, I know the $20 SSD is looking real nice, it looks real cheap, but the quality isn't there. And like with memory, if the quality is very bad, then you have a higher chance of losing your data, which is not good. And I would say for any build, whether that be high, medium, low, then purchase extra fans. Like, just have fans. You know, it keeps everything nice and cool. Why don't you want to be cool? You know, keep it nice and cool. Keep your CPU cool, keep your GPU cool, keep your other components cool. So, yeah, that's basically it. Now, keep your PC away from dusty areas. For instance, let's say you got a room that's more dusty and you got another room that is less dusty. Obviously, put the PC in the less dusty room. It just makes sense. Now, dust can actually trap heat which can, well, you know, with heat is not good. So you want to keep everything as cool as possible. So yeah, you want to keep it away from dusty areas. Also, if you do have to put your PC on the ground, make sure that you don't put it in carpet, because the carpet can block the fan airways, which is not good because you can't get clean fresh air in to cool down your components. Now if you have to, absolutely have to, there's no space on your desk, you have to put it on the ground, and there's carpet on the ground, then I would say get a 2x4 or any, like a block of wood, and just put it on the ground and put your PC on top of that to make sure that the carpet does not block the fan airways. Also, with putting the PC on the ground, it is just more at risk of collecting more useless dust, and you know, dust, it makes things hotter. So yeah, just try to dust is your enemy in PC building. So try to remove as much dust as you can and make sure the dust does not get into your system. Now, clean your PC. I have seen a person have a spider web in their PC. That is nasty. That is disgusting. That is, why would you do that? Please, for the love of God, just clean your PC out. You know, get in there, remove the dust. Just come on, it's just bro, come on, man. There's a spider web in your PC. Do you think that's okay? That is not okay. That means that there is organisms, living organisms, in your PC. A spider who got in your PC, making a web so it can capture the living organisms. That's just so much nasty. Think about the shit. Think about the freaking dust clogging. Think about exposure. Come on, man. Clean your PC. I would say clean your PC every month or so, and do a deep clean every year or so. And that's basically it. I hope this helps you out. Happy building. Oh, and on a very, very last final note, I would say if this is your very first time building a PC, try to go for a build that someone else made. You can go on PC Part Picker. PC Part Picker is really helpful. On PC Part Picker, you can see completed builds. You can check YouTube, Reddit. I would say go on YouTube, because on YouTube they actually tell you how to put it together. So just go search up YouTube. Now, if you've got a budget, I would say a budget for your PC tower, not for the peripherals included, just for your PC tower, I would say $1,000 is a great point for a tower. You know, you're gonna get great performance, and you know, it doesn't hurt your wallets as much. So $1,000 for a PC tower should be good for well really much anyone. So yeah, just go on YouTube, search it up, try to follow that, because they did their research. But you know, if you're feeling a little bit loose, then yeah, I hope these tips help you out. Alright, catch you in the next one. Happy building.